Of the hour, President Trump signing an executive order yesterday giving the Department of Government Efficiency more power. Fox News Digital's political correspondent Brooke Singman now with the details. Brooke.
Good morning, Maria. That's right. So the executive order requires federal agencies to cooperate with DOGE's effort to cut costs and shrink the size of the federal government. So this order directs agencies to restrict hiring to just essential positions. Specifically, agencies must not hire more than one employee for every 4 that leave their federal post. The order also instructs the agencies to determine which agency components or the agencies themselves may be eliminated or combined because their functions are not required by law. Here's what President Trump had to say about all of this yesterday.
We thought that we would not let him do that segment or look in that area if we thought there was a lack of transparency or a conflict of interest. And we watched that also. He's a big businessman. He's a successful guy. That's why we want him doing this. We don't want an unsuccessful guy doing this. Now, one thing also that Elon hasn't really mentioned are the groups of people that are getting some of these payments. They're ridiculous. And we're talking about billions of dollars that we've already found. We found fraud and abuse.
DOGE Chair Elon Musk joining Trump in the Oval Office yesterday to defend his cost-cutting plans. Watch this.
It's not optional for us to reduce the federal expenses. It's essential. It's essential for America to remain solvent as a country. And it's essential for America to have the resources necessary to provide things to its citizens and not simply be servicing vast amounts of debt.
And Congress's new DOGE subcommittee will also have its first hearing today. Now, that's titled The War on Waste, Stamping Out the Scourge of Improper Payments and Fraud. Democratic Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett recently telling Axios she doesn't, quote, anticipate that it's going to be nice. She says she expects full-on combat because DOGE is, quote, clearly the devil right now. House Democrats are clearly preparing for fireworks, Maria, after spending the last week railing against Elon Musk's DOGE. Back to you.
Yeah, I mean, how do you push back on wasteful spending, cutting it out after all of these conversations about getting the numbers down? Brooke, thank you. Brooke Singman, let's get into it. Rebecca, your thoughts.
I don't understand this total focus on Elon Musk. I mean, aside the fact that he's an autistic savant genius and that has multiple companies in multiple industries, all very successful. Why are we not looking at this more transparently? I'm actually really excited about the Pentagon potentially being audited publicly because we know they've failed 8 audits. We know that it goes back to Donald Rumsfeld on September 10th of 2001, the day before 9/11, saying that we've lost trillions of dollars. Those questions have never been answered, and the American public has a right to know. Just the U.S. aid spending alone, Maria, and what has come out of that is so disturbing that this is a full court press for more of this, not less.
Yeah, instead, all we hear about is this. There must be a constitutional crisis underway, John.
Yeah, it is so funny how all the Democrats are on the same sheet of music. Every channel is constitutional crisis, all these things. But Rebecca's right. It's like they're focusing on Elon Musk because they have to personalize this, because if they go to the substance, it's very hard to defend some of the expenditures. But I thought what was interesting, 2 points were really interesting what Elon Musk said. One, we're spending as much money on national defense as servicing the debt. Can you imagine a household spending that much money just on the credit card interest payments? People would say, you got to stop. And the other thing was interesting. He was talking about the retirement system, that we keep the files in an actual mine, and there are workers that go down there and put pieces of paper and files in a mine, and you can only have 10,000 people retire a day because that's the only number that can go up and down the elevator. Was truly astonishing. And the thing that's really funny about it, and we've made this point so many times on this show, if those 1,000 people that work there were able to work in the private sector, they would be producing more for the country in terms of tax dollars and other goods and services. So all of those things, there's really no substantive way to attack this, because this has to be done in some respect, whether it's DOGE or something else.
Yeah, the Wall Street Journal writes, is there a constitutional crisis? Trump's actions are aggressive, but they aren't so an executive coup. No kidding. Seriously. Come on.
Well, mediocre people don't like high achievers, and high achievers don't like mediocre people. To quote Nick Saban, former Alabama coach and one of my heroes. And I think what we're seeing here is some very high-achieving people in Mr. Musk and Mr. Trump. And they have a mission. They have religion about it. And they are doing it for us, for America, for taxpayers, and in the name of efficiency and getting the thing done right. That is upsetting a lot of people who have just come in and punched the clock every day to do their government jobs.
You're right. That's a good quote. All right. We are just getting started this morning. We've got a lot coming up. Stay with us. We'll check markets. We're also talking about Federal Reserve Chairman Jay Powell gearing up for day 2 of testimony on Capitol Hill. He said he's in no rush to cut rates. We are looking ahead to the January Consumer Price Index out this morning at 8:30 a.m. Eastern.
Here's this. A new survey from Gallup shows that former President Biden is the least popular of the 5 living presidents. 39% of U.S. adults viewed him favorably. 57% viewed him unfavorably. Now, the second most unfavorable rating went to President Trump over his first term. The most popular in all this, as you can see on your screen, was Barack Obama, 59%, and then Bush, Clinton. But I'll tell you what, with these numbers, they didn't give us, this is Gallup, they didn't give us any, the why. Obviously, you want to know the why. I'm sure we can think of a few reasons.
I know why Biden is so,
But also, I want to say one thing here. We just lost Jimmy Carter. I would think this was taken right as Biden was leaving office last month. I have a feeling that Carter would have maybe been at the top of the list, but he just passed away, obviously. So, yeah.
Well, I'm not surprised that Biden is at the top of the list here. I mean, he's a horrible president.
Horrible president. I am shocked, however, that Obama is at 59%. If you had asked me, what do you think his approval, I would have said, probably below 50. Yeah. But maybe I'm just clouded by my own view. I did not like what President Obama tried to do to this country.
Well, he set Biden's moves in motion.
Yes.
He started it all.
Yeah, and
the weaponization of government was started under President Obama. In fact, when President Obama was leaving office, remember, he changed everything that the intelligence community was doing so that they could share information. They were working on their Russia collusion story.
And what I really didn't like about Obama was that he went after small business. He said, you people think that you've created these great businesses. No, you actually had the tailwind of the United States behind you.
Yeah, you didn't build that.
Yeah, you didn't build that. You remember when he said that?
Yeah, you didn't build that. By the way, my father had his own business. He really did build it.
Yes.
Yeah.
He built it. I know he built it. My grandfather built it. I mean, they really built it.
So
you worked there?
Guys, the billions of dollars under Obama? The billions of dollars in infrastructure, that did nothing for the nation.
You know what I thought was sort of striking about this? Everyone knows when George W. Bush left office, his popularity was in the tank, and he's positive in these polls. So there is hope for Joe Biden in rehabilitating his image. But I do think you go 3 weeks of the Trump administration compared to the Biden administration, and it just re-emphasizes how weak and inept the Biden administration was. And he ended with the most cynical way of ending with some of these pardons and other things. He could have left on a high, but he always took the low road every chance he got.
By the way, it's 20 minutes before Trump got inaugurated on January 20th.
Yes.
Pardons
his brother, right? Yeah.
20 minutes before the inauguration. But I think you've just hit on something that I've been thinking about. This whole first 3 weeks of the Trump administration has been such black and white when you see what has happened in these 3 weeks versus 4 years of Joe Biden.
Yes.
What were they doing?
Nothing. Exactly. They weren't doing anything. That they were on autopilot. And I would argue, we can't prove this, that it was Obama behind the scenes as the grand puppeteer. I used to think it was Chuck and Nancy.
He said that in that interview, remember? He was doing an interview, and he said, I'd like to just be in my pajamas in my basement, and I'd just have an earpiece in the person's ear, and I'll tell them what to do.
But guess what? No,
and he wasn't very good at doing that.
Because we're finally going to find out where all the money's going, and all of those numbers are going to change, because everyone's going to be in the toilet with their ratings, because it's going to be like, what have you been doing with all of our money all these years? So now we know.
No wonder they tried to stop Trump so much.
Yes, this is exactly why. No accountability.
And think about the timing of this Gallup poll. It was right as Biden was leaving, but we've now had 3 weeks of Donald Trump. I have a feeling his ratings would be a little bit different if you took those numbers today versus when Gallup took them initially.
Yeah, that's great. It's a great point. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Cheryl. We kick it off with the hot topic of the hour. American teacher Mark Fogel, who was wrongfully detained in Russia back in 2021, is finally back on U.S. soil. The history teacher from Pennsylvania served was serving a 14-year prison sentence after being arrested at a Russian airport for possession of medical prescribed marijuana. President Trump meeting with Fogel at the White House last night following his safe return with U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff. Watch.
I feel like the luckiest man on earth right now. And I want you to know that I am not a hero in this at all. And President Trump is a hero. These men that came from the diplomatic service are heroes. The senators and representatives that passed legislation in my honor to get me home are the heroes. I am in awe of what they all did.
And that was Mark Fogel last night at the White House. I watched him come into the White House on TV. President Trump is standing there waiting for him. Look, let's be clear. President Trump did this.
Yeah, he's the hero.
President Trump is the hero. I don't know what these senators and congressmen did, but President Trump and Steve Witkoff got this guy home. How come it's taken so long?
Well, I think it's really interesting. This is the metaphor of the Trump administration versus the Biden administration. He sat in 3 years in Russian prison for possessing marijuana. In 3 weeks under the Trump administration, he's home. And it really just shows that, the Biden administration really looked at American weakness as somehow virtuous. And it's just funny. Strong American leadership can accomplish so much more and so many good things. And the Biden administration, it doesn't even seem like they tried, which is the worst part of it all.
And not only that, but there's a reason that as President Trump was getting inaugurated on January 20th, the hostages in Gaza started coming home. Yeah. He said those hostages better be home by the time I'm inaugurated, and at least
or all hell will break loose.
All hell will break loose, and the process started.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it's about initiative. It's about getting things done. And quite frankly, and I'm thrilled about this, people fear him. They don't know what he's capable of. And that, that goes back to Teddy Roosevelt. Carry a big stick. Right. You may not always use it, and let's hope you don't need to use it, but carry that big stick and let people know you've got it.
Israel's security cabinet is now fully backing President Trump's demand for Hamas to release all hostages by Saturday at noon. The president doubled down on the plans to acquire Gaza as well yesterday. Watch this.
We don't have to buy. There's nothing to buy. We will have Gaza. It's a war-torn area. We're going to take it. We're going to hold it. We're going to cherish it. I have a Saturday deadline, and I don't think they're going to make the deadline. They want to play tough guy, but we'll see how tough they are. It's going to be wonderful for the Middle East. I think it'll turn the Middle East. I think you're going to have peace in the Middle East.
Well, this is going to be watched closely all week and weekend. The King of Jordan, King Abdullah II, met with President Trump at the White House yesterday. Here's what he said. Watch.
There is a plan from Egypt and the Arab countries. We have to look at the best interests of the United States, of the people in the region, especially to my people of Jordan. One of the things that we can do right away is take 2,000 children that are either cancer children or in very ill state to Jordan as quickly as possible, and then wait for, I think, the Egyptians to present their plan on how we can work with the president to work on the Gaza challenges.
Your reaction, Jonathan?
It's pretty amazing listening to Donald Trump, particularly the part about taking Gaza and cherishing it, and I think it's just a game changer in terms of the way we're thinking about things. Not the same old, let's rebuild it with hundreds of billions of dollars with some conditional loans and all this nonsense. And I don't think it will, maybe it'll be Gaza-Lago and everyone will love it, but it's going to be, it really does seem to be something that, hey, we have to do things differently. Yeah. The same old has failed, and it's going to fail again. So let's not do it.
For the longest time, we've been talking about a potential two-state solution. The problem is something that Jack Keane said on this program yesterday. The terrorists, Hamas, want to destroy Israel. They're not talking about a two-state solution. They're talking about a one-state solution.
Right, that's their motto. Right. I mean, that's their exact motto.
For Hamas, yes, right. For the Palestinians. They want Israel wiped off the face of the earth.
Yeah. Maria, I was going to say, for people that push back on this and say, what is he talking about? This is the Middle East. It is different, to your point, Jonathan. We have done these things before, gone into Syria, gone into other war-torn regions where, the United States goes in as a stabilizing force and then occupies. I don't know how long. I'm not advocating for that. I'm just saying, as to your point, Jonathan, nothing else has worked. This is biblical. This goes back to the Old Testament in the Bible, if you believe in the Bible, and it's never going to get solved by humans. End of story for me.
Your thoughts?
Yeah. Well, a two-state solution seems not only logical, but something we've all been talking about for generations. It began with Begin and Sadat. It then, with Yasser Arafat, became a discussion. And now here we are talking about it again. So you can go back 45 to 50 years and people have been talking about it. If people talk about something for that long, and so many different people talk about something for so long, there must be something to it.
Mm-hmm. I wonder what happens now. I mean, do you think with the release of another Russian tomorrow, we start getting more detail in terms of what this negotiation and deal really looks like, in terms of what President Trump has negotiated with Putin? Obviously, this could be the beginning of Putin backing off of Ukraine. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good point. And this, we want the war in Ukraine to end. And if the relationship is getting better with us and Russia and us and Ukraine, maybe that's a possibility. But I do think it is interesting. What did we give up in return, if anything? And that'll be interesting how that unfolds to see what it looks like.
All right, let's take a short break and then come back at it. We are just getting started this hour. We've got a lot coming up. We're in the thick of the busy earnings season. We're waiting on potential tariffs on Europe to be announced by President Trump in the next 24 to 48 hours. Got the Word on Wall Street panel here with expectations. You're watching Mornings with Maria live on Fox. Welcome back. Time now for the Word on Wall Street. Top investors watching your money. Joining me now is Payne Capital Management President and host of Payne Points of Wealth podcast, Ryan Payne. Also with us this morning, Adam Johnson and Rebecca Walser. Great to see you. Thanks for joining the conversation.
Thanks, Maria. Great to be here.
Yeah, I want to basically kick it off with the earnings period. We're in the middle of a busy fourth quarter earnings season. CVS reported a double beat this morning. Let's go to the stock. Stock is up 9%. They're talking about the pace of higher medical expenses is slowing. Revenue in the pharmacy and consumer wellness sector was up 7.5%. Higher volumes of prescription drugs there. Again, CVS is up almost 9% right now. Cisco Systems and Paramount Global out after the bell tonight, followed by Deere & Company and Wendy's, both out tomorrow. How would you assess earnings so far?
Phenomenal, right? If you look at it, we anticipated maybe 8% growth going into the earnings season. We're going to see more like 13% growth for the quarter, which is phenomenal, and at a 6.7% beat over what analysts anticipated. So overall, I think, the story has been, the analysts love to play the game, the companies love to play the game of like lowering their expectations and then beating. And I think you're seeing that in classic form. And going to next year, we're going to see double-digit earnings growth again. This is like as good as it gets.
What about inflation? I mean, I saw a report earlier that people are expecting eggs to be up 20% this year, that inflation is still an issue. Does that cut into earnings?
We don't know yet. I mean, it has been moderating in the last 6 months. It's been maybe a little higher than what we anticipated. I mean, if the Fed wants to get down to 2%, we're going to hear about 2.8, 2.9% today when the CPI number comes out. So I think that could be a problem down the line. And I do think we haven't beaten inflation, and I think that is a problem moving forward. And I think you have to position your portfolio accordingly.
Well, the growth has been in AI, right, Adam?
Oh, yeah,
I mean,
sure has been.
And you've said NVIDIA, as much as it's gone up, it's still cheaper than Palantir,
yes.
Despite rapid growth. Palantir is up better than 360% in the last year. NVIDIA is up 84%, Adam. Size these two up for us.
All right. So one of the most important things that any investor can consider is the following. The price you pay for the growth you get. Right? Fair enough. So in the case of these two stocks, NVIDIA and Palantir, NVIDIA is trading at about 30 times earnings, and you're getting 75% growth. All right? 30 times earnings, 75% growth.
Wow.
Palantir is trading at 200 times earnings, and you're only getting 20% growth. So why would you buy Palantir at 200 times earnings for 20% growth when you can buy NVIDIA for 30 times earnings and get 70% growth?
Let me push back for a second because I've been looking at Palantir recently. I mean, this company and its investments in defense technology really excites me. I think that with President Trump talking about all the innovation and modernization he wants in the U.S. military, does this spawn a whole new move into investing in defense tech?
I think the market's current valuation is telling us that the answer to your question is yes, that there is some sort of change that's going to happen and that Palantir will grow into its current valuation because there is going to be so much happening dynamically inside the company and such a change and introduction of new strategies that suddenly Palantir is going to see its earnings rise dramatically.
But it's in the stock already.
But that's priced in.
Got it. Okay.
And that's my issue with it.
Look, we got to talk about tariffs because that obviously could send this market into another sell-off. I'm fully expecting reciprocal tariffs on Europe to be announced this week.
Absolutely.
President Trump hinted at it. I spoke with Stephen Miller, the deputy chief of staff, who went through the idea of a potential VAT tax being included. So when we get that announcement later on this week, does that create upset for investors? General Motors is expecting to mitigate up to 50% of the president's import tariffs from Canada and Mexico. CEO Maria Bartiromo says that this would include potentially avoiding short-term impact of the between 30 and 50% of additional expenses without deploying any capital. Do you believe that? I mean, not everybody's thinking this way. The CEO of Ford, Jim Farley, said Trump's tariff threat is causing chaos for the auto industry, Rebecca.
Yeah, so, Maria, basically this is all just happening. GM had in their quarterly call just 2 weeks ago, and they didn't address the upcoming tariffs, and so their stock price dropped 8% as related to, she didn't even address it. So now you've got GM coming out and saying, because Trump just signed an executive order on Monday night, Maria, putting 25% effective March the 4th on aluminum and steel. And so now you've got the car manufacturers, you got Coca-Cola and everybody reacting this week as to what's happening. And what the CEO of GM is saying is two things. One, they have some price fixes already locked in, whether it's options contracts or they already have long-term contracts built in. But they're saying, their CFO said, if this sticks for a long time, then they'll actually shift where parts are actually made. So basically what they're saying is most of their steel is sourced from the United States, but they use suppliers where their steel is sourced outside that it would impact, and therefore it would impact costs. But GM is actually coming out and saying, we have a strategy, we have a plan, we're going to be able to deal with this, whereas the Ford CEO is basically saying this is chaos and cost.
I'll tell you, President Trump is going to get more and more companies to come and build it in America.
Yeah,
100%.
Because they're not going to want to deal with all of these tariffs.
True.
And they're going to say, you know what? I give up. I'm going to manufacture it.
Here's the one tricky thing. It could all change in 4 years. In other words, let's say you're a corporation and you move to the U.S. so you can build here, but then Trump is out. We don't know who comes in, and all of a sudden,
it's got to be more stable.
Well, it's also
for
the labor force issue. We need more people to work here. Yeah, it's a problem.
Would you buy stocks today?
I would, because I think the other thing that's talked about inflation is margin expansion. Every company is going to be using AI. In fact, Palantir, we talked about one of their customers, multinational bank. They took one of their backwriting processes from literally 3 weeks to 3 hours. So when you talk about the processes and the margin expansion, I think that's going to benefit every single company in America.
So as long as people have jobs.
You would buy stocks today, too.
Oh, I've been buying stocks. In fact, a new client is bringing in money today or tomorrow, and we will be deploying.
Rebecca, you too?
I still think it's overbought. I'm sorry. I'm going to wait.
So you're going to be on the other side of that trade?
Yeah.
Don't be afraid.
McDonald's is not doing great. Same story year over year. That's a shift, Ryan.
Ryan, thank you. Thank you for turning the conversation. Adam and Rebecca, you're with us all morning. We so appreciate that.
Never broke the law, and I never would. I thank the Justice Department for its honesty. Now, we can put this cruel episode behind us and focus entirely on the future of our city. It's time to move forward.
That was New York City Mayor Eric Adams yesterday, one day after President Trump's Department of Justice ordered federal prosecutors to drop the bribery case and the charges against him. Trump blasting New York City on Truth Social yesterday, saying this: "We need great judges and politicians to help New York and to stop the kind of lawfare that was launched against me. The president also vowing to help, quote, make New York great again. Joining me now is the chairman and CEO of Red Apple Group, United Refining Company, and Gristedes and D'Agostino supermarkets. John Catsimatidis is back with us. John, great to see you.
Well, thank you, Maria.
Well, I know you want to make New York great again. You had the inside scoop on this, didn't you?
Well, I was with Mayor Adams when the news broke, and I'm the one that broke it to him. And
you told him the DOJ is dropping the charges against you.
Yes.
What did he say?
You should see his face. It looked like 1,000 pounds of bricks came off his shoulders. And I said, good for you. I mean, we were both at the Al Smith dinner, and what happened was that Trump felt that the same forces that went against him went against Eric Adams.
Yeah.
And he said, enough is enough again. And on my show yesterday, we broke the fact that Tom Homan is coming to New York on Thursday. And he's going to meet with Eric Adams and make New York great again.
Well, I mean, I said that also from day one. I felt like, the Biden administration officials were fine with all of his relationships in Turkey until he started complaining about the border. And when Mayor Adams said, I need $1 billion to house and help all of the illegals, and, somebody's got to help me in the federal government, well, that's when all of a sudden the Turkey relationships weren't good.
And Andrew Cuomo, the same thing. You know when they hit Andrew Cuomo? When he said that he may run in 2024 during his 2-hour conferences. Once he said, I may run in 2024, he became the enemy of the people. And they went after Cuomo. They went after Eric Adams. They went after Donald Trump almost in every state. Like 4 or 5 states. It is... Somebody has to track these people down.
Do you read into...
Somebody was pressing that button.
Yeah. Do you read into anything the fact that the charges were dropped without prejudice?
No.
What does that mean? Because now a Democrat said this to me yesterday, and I want to make sure that I bring it up. In other words, he was suggesting that they could be brought back.
Yeah,
they legally, as a lawyer.
Yeah, they can be brought back, but typically when cases are dismissed, that's the way they're dismissed, and they're typically not brought back. So dismissing something with prejudice is quite extraordinary. So I wouldn't read too much into it, but they may want to leave it open if something breaks really, really bad and bring it back. That maybe something that was unknown, but I wouldn't think that that's anything that should be remarkable.
Okay,
I'll give you the translation. This is the going away until the Tom Homan meeting, and Tom Homan is going to evaluate if Eric is going to cooperate to make New York safe again.
Oh, yeah. Interesting.
And Tom Homan, 5 minutes later, he'll report back to President Trump, and either things are fine or not.
Yeah.
But we want New York safe again. That's all we want.
Well, that's what my source said. He said to me, the charges were dropped without prejudice, meaning they can be brought back. Very smart of Trump. He owns Adams now. If Adams does anything he doesn't like, he brings back the charges. I don't know if there's any truth to that, but that's why I want to ask you, a lawyer. Well, let me get to inflation, John, because obviously we're all feeling it. Costco, Kroger, Whole Foods, Trader Joe's all put a purchasing limit on eggs. Due to the supply shortages caused by the outbreak of the bird flu, egg prices are soaring. Last week, the average wholesale price for large white shell eggs reached $8 for a dozen. This is wholesale. Retail, it's higher than this. The previous all-time wholesale price was $5.46 back in December 2022. How much are eggs retail right now?
Right now, probably $11, $12, $13, $14. Which ones you want? Brown eggs, you want free-range eggs, et cetera, et cetera. But they're in the low teens right now.
I've never seen anything like that. Well, $14 for a dozen eggs.
They're killing the chickens.
Yeah.
And because of bird flu, right?
Because of bird flu. Now, let's ask the $64 trillion question. Is this another COVID crisis to greet President Trump?
Wow.
And we don't know that.
I'm getting anxiety already.
Just your finger in it. Tell us.
January 25th, 2020, I'm the one that interviewed Fauci. And he says, oh, don't worry, no problem.
Yeah, right.
I remember that interview. Hannity played it over and over again. And you always have to, being in the intelligence world, you always have to
trust
that
but
there's
verify.
Trust but verify. That was a great remark.
I understand where you're going with this. So we're not sure what this is, but the bottom line is it's sending prices higher again. What are your expectations as the owner of D'Agostino's, Gristini's? What are your expectations about the price of food this year?
The price of food is going to come down. The price of, and they're resisting Trump. Powell is resisting Trump. I believe the price of oil is coming down. And like I think President Trump followed my recommendations. The price of oil goes down. The price of gasoline goes down, diesel fuel goes down, and then fuel goes down. And then food goes down because they depend on diesel fuel.
Right.
And food goes down, then the Fed has to lower rates because inflation will go almost to zero.
And you've mentioned this a couple of times because of the price of oil. That's what we want to get your take on. Oil prices this morning. Let's take a look at where they are. Do you believe that President Trump will be able to send prices lower and ultimately send overall food prices lower because of the cost of transporting that food? Do you agree, President Trump?
Yeah. Oh, yes, absolutely. It's going to the Red Sea is open. The price should come down $5, $6, $7 a barrel because of the Red Sea being open. The Suez Canal is open. I mean, the Houthis better not dare even go near another ship because he'll go in there, wipe them out.
Yeah. Go ahead,
but what happens if we do intervene in the Middle East and the Gaza Strip specifically? Do you think that will again flare up the price of production and this is a great track you have us on to get to zero inflation, but I'm just concerned with that development.
No, I don't think so. I don't think the Houthis or the Iran dare do anything contrary to President Trump's opinion right now. They don't have a chump in the White House anymore.
Well, I agree. I think the resistance is going to be harder this time.
Yeah.
People resisting President Trump.
Yes. Well, we were talking earlier about, the old Teddy Roosevelt theory, carry a big stick.
Yeah.
Hopefully you never use it. But if people see that you've got a big stick, they think, he might actually use it.
This is a different president. He's a 2.0, and he knows how the sausage is made, and he's not rerunning. So this is the one that we've been waiting for to deal with the stuff.
Did we cover everything? Did you want to add something?
I just want to make New York safe again.
Yeah.
Amen.
And I think the only person that can do that is President Trump.
Amen.
All right. Thanks, Katz. John Katsimatidis here. Quick break, and then FEMA fires employees after they sent financial.
Well, 4 FEMA employees fired for their role in directing a $59 million payment to New York City last week to cover the cost of illegal migrants so they could stay in luxury hotels. The firings after Elon Musk revealed on X that DOGE and his team had discovered that the funds had been moved. FEMA's chief financial officer, 2 program analysts, and a grant specialist all dismissed. DHS officials say the agency will not sit idly by while activists try to undermine the will and safety of the American people. And then following up on what you were just talking about, New York City Mayor Eric Adams, he has now responded to that move by the DOJ to drop the criminal case against him that was brought by the Biden DOJ, to be clear here, last year. Watch this.
I never broke the law, and I never would. I would never put any personal benefit above my solemn responsibility as your mayor. I never ask anyone to break the law on my behalf or on behalf of my campaign. Never. And I absolutely never traded my power as an elected official for any personal benefit.
So in this memo by the acting deputy AG to dismiss the charges, it was immediate, but also not to take, quote, additional steps against him until after the November election. And in that memo, it was very clear in black and white that this was a political move made against Adams, which is what y'all were discussing with John Katsimatidis. But after the November election, that's going to be interesting. If they're going to try, if the New York team's going to try and come back at him, I don't know.
Or his competitors, like will Andrew Cuomo run against him?
Yeah, exactly. I think one of the interesting things about putting aside the substance of the allegations against Adams, I think this really highlights how when the Justice Department or the justice system becomes so politicized, then everyone views everything as political and it delegitimizes the whole system. And I think that's a lot of the reason this case was dismissed, because if people can't trust it, that harms all of us. So we need to get back to the point where we don't politicize the justice system. And I hope that Donald Trump seems to be going down that road, which is good for all of us.
And it all seems political. Every bit of it. Everything they've been doing to Trump for 10 years, it's all political. 90 plus indictments while he's running for president. Please.
Well, and isn't it amazing, actually, here was a situation where Democrats went after one of their own, Mayor Adams, because he said, we can't put kids in schools because we're putting migrants there. You got to stop doing this. All of a sudden, he gets charged with bribery. Imagine that.
And all of a sudden, all of these things come up about Turkey, as if they didn't know it before.
They were years old.
Suddenly, it became important because he said he needed $1 billion because he's getting overwhelmed by illegals.
Exactly. And you know what? That also was in that memo, Maria, by the acting AG, that this was politically motivated. And they also said, look, he needs to focus on running New York City and cleaning up the city and making it safe, just like John just said.
So we don't have to go to the drugstore and go to buy toothpaste and ask the manager to unlock it. So that we can. Oh, my goodness. Thank you, Cheryl. Welcome back. Good Wednesday morning, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us this morning. I'm Maria Bartiromo, and I hope you're having a good morning. It is Wednesday, February 12th. It is 8:01 on the East Coast. We kick the hour off with the hot topic of the hour. The president signing an executive order yesterday giving the Department of Government Efficiency more power to cut waste. Fox News Digital's political correspondent Brooke Singman now with the details. Brooke.
Hey, good morning, Maria. That's right. So the executive order requires federal agencies to cooperate with DOGE's effort to cut costs and shrink the size of the federal government. So this order directs agencies to restrict hiring to just essential positions. Specifically, agents must not hire more than one employee for every 4 that have left their federal post. The order also instructs the agencies to determine which agency components or the agencies themselves may be eliminated or combined because their functions are not required by law. Here's what President Trump had to say about all of this yesterday.
We thought that we would not let him do that segment or look in that area if we thought there was a lack of transparency or a conflict of interest. And we watched that also. He's a big businessman. He's a successful guy. That's why we want him doing this. We don't want an unsuccessful guy doing this. Now, one thing also that Elon hasn't really mentioned are the groups of people that are getting some of these payments. They're ridiculous. And we're talking about billions of dollars that we've already found. We found fraud and abuse.
DOGE Chair Elon Musk joined Trump in the Oval Office yesterday to defend his cost-cutting plans. Watch this.
It's not optional for us to reduce the federal expenses. It's essential. It's essential for America to remain solvent as a country. And it's essential for America to have the resources necessary to provide things to its citizens and not simply be servicing vast amounts of debt.
Congress's new DOGE subcommittee will also have its first hearing today. Now, that's titled The War on Waste, Stamping Out the Scourge of Improper Payments and Fraud. Democratic Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett recently telling Axios she doesn't, quote, anticipate that it's going to be nice. She says she expects, quote, full-on combat because DOGE is clearly the devil right now. House Democrats are clearly preparing for fireworks, Maria, after spending the last week railing against Elon Musk and DOGE. Back to you.
All right, Brooke, thanks very much. Brooke Singman, Adam, your reaction.
He is doing the good Lord's work, Mr. Musk is, and thank goodness, because he is doing this for all of us. We all pay taxes, and we like to see that money invested wisely or spent wisely or just spent responsibly. And now we find out, because of this U.S. aid entity, that there was, $40 billion going to gender, whatever, and this and that.
I have the list right here.
Yeah, let's hear it, Maria.
$1.5 million for advancing DEI in Serbia's workplace. Serbia provided $2 million in grant money to fund sex changes in Guatemala. $7.9 million to a project that would teach Sri Lankan journalists to avoid binary gendered language.
Wow.
Up to $1 million in taxpayer funds on a project to help disabled people in Tajikistan become climate leaders. $1.1 million for gender diverse people in Bangladesh. Spent $20 million on Alan Simpson, a new Sesame Street show in Iraq. $25 million for green transportation and logistics in Eastern Europe. $6 million to transform digital spaces to reflect feminist Democrat principles. $10 million worth of U.S. aid-funded meals went to al-Qaeda-linked terrorist groups in the Nusra Front. I mean, look, I'm not going to keep going. This list is long.
Yeah, the good news is not anymore.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Musk, and thank you, Donald Trump.
Yeah, it's true.
Well, transparency is so important, and Elon Musk's point is so good, and no one can argue with this. This has to stop. We can't afford it long term. If we're spending more money on interest than we do on national defense, that's not a good recipe for future success. And these things, this is going to be the tip of the iceberg. I mean, these are quite amusing, but I think we go through every agency, and there's going to be a comparable list. And $20 million for the Sesame Street in Iraq. And there was a Democratic senator that was on TV this week defending this, which is astonishing. It's like, is there anything they won't defend? There should be at least a line that everyone's like, okay, you've gone too far.
I mean, I just don't know how they can sit there and defend it. The 2024 deficit, Rebecca, the highest it has ever been outside of a recession or an emergency, $881 billion in fiscal year 2024. The Committee for a Responsible Budget obviously points this out all the time. Interest is the single largest item in the budget behind Social Security. That's more than spending on defense, Medicare, and on children.
And it's moved, Maria. The bigger point is that it has moved up. It used to be solidly down to 4 or lower, and we are literally approaching a debt bubble that will spiral out of control. The only complaint I have about Donald Trump, President Trump, and Elon Musk is that this is not public enough. This is not transparent enough. I really want to see government resources here, and I'm talking C-SPAN, and I want to see somebody literally sitting there and putting it on the screen nonstop, 24/7. Yeah. There is nothing more important to the American people right now than how we are so bankrupt and we have to keep spending at wartime and pandemic time level spending. And these are the reasons why.
And everybody knows when you're trying to put a budget together, the first thing you have to do is stop digging the hole. Right. So you have to understand where the money is going.
Yes.
These are basics, whether you're running a household, a business, or the government.
Amen. Yeah.
So there's no other way Elon Musk and Donald Trump can do this without understanding where the money is going. They're just embarrassed.
Well, you just said something very important, Maria. We're back to basics.
Yeah.
Thank goodness. Government is back to basics.
All right, welcome back. We're on countdown mode. The January Consumer Price Index out in about 4.5 minutes. Economists are expecting month-over-month prices to be up 0.3% and year-over-year prices to be up 2.9%. Joining us now to get ahead of it is Piper Sandler's Managing Director and Senior Economist Jake Ubina, along with CFRA Chief Investment Strategist Sam Stovall. Also back with us is Adam Johnson, Rebecca Walser, and Jonathan Fahey. Jake, great to see you. Thank you so much for being here. Kick us off here. How would you assess inflation in 2025, and where is it going?
Yeah, so for the number today, we're consensus. We're at 0.3. I think there's a couple of things going on with inflation. So over the longer term, there is a mechanical slowing that we have, namely from housing. Housing's catching up to reality vis-a-vis rents. We've talked about this for, I think, over a year now. That's happening underneath the surface. Near term, we're getting a little bit more worried about the stickiness here, and this relates to tariff and tariff risks and how people are responding to this. So businesses, I think, are starting to adjust contracts to build in some buffers for tariffs. You're starting to see consumers respond by purchasing ahead of rising prices. This is one of the things we've seen in the University of Michigan survey. The sort of, are you buying ahead of rising prices? That surged over the course of the last couple of months, something that we didn't even see during the pandemic. So there is a response function here to tariff risks. Now, if those go away, I think you can get an unwind of that, obviously. If they don't, you're going to start seeing some price fluctuations in the PPI in particular, because we are more sensitive to capital investment vis-a-vis our imports than we are to consumer spending. And then eventually you'll start to see that leak into the CPI as well. So near term, I think we're a little bit more cautious, just given the tariff cadence here.
Well, I mean, Sam, I was expecting to hear more about the expectation or guidance regarding tariffs from executives when they reported their fourth quarter numbers. I'm trying to listen to what they say about 2025. How would you assess that part of the story with regard to earnings?
Well, Maria, I think certainly that is the question. We've been seeing earnings come in 5 percentage points above what expectations were at the end of December of 2024, looking at 9 of the 11 sectors posting upward revisions. Also, with the ISM data now peeking its head above the expansionary level of 50, questions have been raised as, is this temporary because of an acceleration of ordering to try to get ahead of the tariff situation, or is it just an improvement in the overall economy? I don't think that management really wants to acknowledge too much that that whatever they're doing is not something that is in their control. So I think we'll have to wait and see, but that's a good possibility that maybe there was not as much accelerated ordering as anticipated.
Okay, so they're not going to front load it and try to buy as much as possible now so they can stock up. You're saying they're just not sure.
Well, I think they're not sure, and they probably, just to be safe, did do some upfront stockpiling, and maybe that was certainly not a question directly asked and therefore responded to.
Adam, how do you want to prepare for these numbers? Tell me what you're going to be looking for in the CPI number out in about 2 minutes.
Well, a couple of things. I'm certainly going to be looking for a little bit of a break on housing, which I think Jake effectively alluded to. The year-over-year comps get easier for housing as we go forward. And the reason that matters is that housing is 1/3 of the CPI calculation. So if we can get a little bit of a break on the housing, that might help the CPI come down. And quite frankly, we need it because we had 3 back-to-back months of higher than expected readings. And then last month, we got a little bit of a break. It was in line. So today's number is very important because we need to see more of a break. We don't want to see a resumption of those higher than expected numbers. If you're buying stocks because you want the Fed to cut rates, that's the wrong reason. I think earnings is the reason to buy stocks. But yeah, today's number is very important, Maria.
Yeah, I mean, it's the January CPI, and I'm wondering if weather is also an issue here. Rebecca, real quick, what do you want to look at in this number?
I'm looking at, to Jake's point, the University of Michigan's consumer sentiment went from 74 in December to 71.1 in January. So it's interesting that there's such magnetism around Trump and his policies being beneficial to CEOs and CFOs, but then the tariffs have pushed kind of in the other sentiment. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Markets are falling like a rock. Let's get you, Cheryl. The number is out.
Yeah. So we've got a much hotter than expected report, guys, overall. Month over month, the expectation was 0.3. We got a 0.5. Year over year, 3%. We were looking for 2.9% up. Core month over month came in 0.4. That is hotter than expected. We were looking for 0.3, and core year over year also coming in substantially higher than expected, 3.3%. We were looking for 3.1%. Let me get into the report and tell you exactly what the government is telling us. But I think shelter is going to be certainly a component for this, as Adam Johnson was just talking about. Yep. The index for shelter rose just month over month 0.4%. That was 30% of the monthly all items increase. The energy index rose 1.1% just month to month. Gasoline, that increased month to month 1.8%. So this is where the bulk of the report is coming for. We also saw increases motor vehicle insurance, recreation, used cars and trucks, medical care, communication, airline fares. All of these things went up. And that really offsets anything you saw with like personal care or household, which is where we saw a little bit of a pullback, guys. But this is definitely, certainly, something that the markets are not really happy with right now. And really quick, I know we've got Lydia coming up on egg prices, but we have seen massive jumps in egg prices. Listen to this, 53% year over year jump in egg prices from January of 2024 to January of 2025. That really hurts the American consumer, and I really wanted to see what that was going to tell us, Maria. But yeah, much hotter report. I'm still looking at it. Back to you.
I mean, that is because of the bird flu largely, but it also is on top of just general inflation. The Dow Industrial is down 390 points right now, going down in a minute after this number broke hotter than expected. Jake Ubina, your reaction to this number?
Yeah, look, a lot of this was expected in terms of the headline stuff. I think the energy, you see nat gas go up materially as well, so I expect energy services were probably hot in this report too. Egg prices, futures there have basically doubled since early December, so that was going to feed through. But I'm more concerned about the broad-based nature of the heat here. And again, when you look at all the consternation around tariffs and the potential pull forward in activity that could create, it creates a short-term environment where you could have hotter prints. There's also another thing to consider here. This report would have come with significant revisions to the prior year's seasonal factors. And so the cadence coming out of 2024, I'm not sure what that looks like, but maybe that's somewhere where we can actually take some solace. Maybe we had a lighter cadence coming out of the year. And there's been seasonally hotter prints at the beginning of the year. Yep. So maybe the market eventually looks past this. And, you'd have to kind of get into the guts a little bit here. But on an overall basis, it looks hotter, and it looks worrying when we tie it into the tariff concerns here.
Yeah, sure. The tariff concerns add to the worry as well. Real quick, Sam, we got to jump, but what's the impact of this number like this?
Well, I think the impact is you look at some of the defensive areas, energy, healthcare, consumer staples, they have the lowest correlation with year-on-year increases in inflation, whereas communication services, consumer discretionary, and real estate have the highest correlation. So those last three could be under pressure.
All right, Jacob Wiener, Sam Stovall, great to have you both, gentlemen. Thank you. We will see you soon. Adam, Rebecca, Jonathan, you're with us for the rest of the show, and we so appreciate that. We'll be right back with more analysis. Welcome back. Major grocery stores are now limiting egg purchases, causing prices to skyrocket. Fox Business's Lydia Hu now here with more. Lydia.
Hey, Maria, I brought you a dozen eggs as a gesture of goodwill this morning. But I want to tell you, our producer had to go from store to store just to find these because shelves are actually out of stock. People are panic buying eggs as prices skyrocket and our supply is limited. What's behind this limited supply? It is a particularly deadly strain of the bird flu. Farmers have lost more than 46 million chickens since mid-October. That's more than all of the chickens lost in 2022. So our laying population right now in the country is at the lowest level since 2015. So it's with reduced supply, you'll see signs like this in major grocery stores across the country. Limits on egg purchases to 1 carton per day, one carton per person, 3 cartons per customer in some stores. And some stores, you can see here, they're just completely out of stock. Bare shelves, like our producer found here in New York City. Major retailers are limiting the purchases. Trader Joe's and Costco. According to some reports, we're also seeing limits at Whole Foods, Stop and Shop, Safeway, Sam's Club, Kroger. You name it. There's no retailer that is immune from this. There is one central New Jersey egg farmer that I spoke with. He says he has never seen a bird flu outbreak like this before, and he's taking every precaution to protect his flock. Listen to what he had to say.
Everybody's practicing their biosecurity to keep their, keep their birds, keep their flocks protected, keep the chickens protected as best as possible. They're on like DEFCON 5.
DEFCON 5, he says. Egg prices are soaring now nationwide. The wholesale egg price right now for $1 for 1 dozen, $8.11. That's an all-time high. We've never seen a price like that before. Back in October of 2024, just a few months ago, it was $2.21. So we're seeing an increase of 267% in the wholesale price for a dozen eggs. To put a finer point on this, Maria, the egg farmer that I talked to says a pallet of 15 dozen eggs he used to sell for around $20. It's now going for around $120 because there's just such incredible demand for these eggs. So we'll see those prices flow through our food.
And people are stealing them, some thieves.
That's right. But I mean, I think the important point there is that they're stealing them not because they're stealing to feed themselves. Like, we do have eggs. It's because they're actually so valuable now.
And reselling them probably.
Exactly.
I think you got a deal on these eggs. I've seen them for more than
$10.49.
You said $10.49.
Yeah, that's a deal.
I've seen them for $13.99, $15.99.
Yeah. And if you buy the fancy brown ones, the jumbos at Eli's Market on the Upper East Side, it's a lot more than that. Trust me.
Lydia, thank you so much. You got it. Lydia, what do you make of all of this? I mean, we just saw the hotter than expected CPI number, and I think the egg situation was part of that.
I mean, that's certainly part of it. Inflation is a problem, and admittedly, that's a problem for me as a growth investor. I need to see, inflation come down and rates come down.
Rates get cut.
All right. We'll take a break and come right back. You're watching Mornings with Maria live on Fox Business. Stay with us.